Hello, little chilblains. Now, this is our Greek mythology, which I've mentioned to you, and also Medusa, who I have mentioned to you. Medusa was a gorgon, and here is, I want to say a picture. I mean, who even knows what the gorgons look like? Anyway, this is the story of Medusa, the quest of Perseus. Okay, so the brass prison. There was once a king of Argos. You'll have heard of Argos. Argos is the shop. Who had a daughter, Danae. She was growing up and the king was growing old. The Pythia told him that the son of his daughter would cause his death. So that would be his grandson would cause his death. To prevent this prophecy coming true, he locked his daughter away in a prison made of brass. Now we shall see that the Pythia does not always tell the truth, he said. So the words that are in blue and underlined, that tells us that they're in the glossary at the end. Pythia was a high priestess, so like a priest but a woman. And prophecy is saying something that's going to happen in the future. So it was quite common in sort of ancient times to hear of people prophesying, that is, saying things that they think would happen. And the idea that it would be a priestess is quite a normal idea. So let's carry on. So Danae was kept shut up in the prison of brass. Brass is a metal. It's a mixture of, I think, copper and something else, but I can't remember. Maybe iron. She had no one to talk to but her old nurse. She never saw the land or the sea, but only the blue sky above the window, and now and then a white cloud sailing across. Day after day she sat under the window and wondered why her father kept her in that lonely place, and whether he would ever come and take her out. Time passed by, and Danae grew fairer every day, and by she was no longer a child, but a tall and beautiful woman. The god Zeus, amid the clouds, looked down and saw her and loved her. One day the god Zeus visited Danae from the sky, and he visited the imprisoned girl often, always as a tall and handsome youth. They were married and had a son called Perseus. In spite of all that he had done, Danae's father began to think the words of Pythia might come true. So Danae and her son Perseus were put to sea in a wooden chest. The king thought that if they died together, the prophecy couldn't come true. But they didn't die. After several days at sea, they drifted ashore on a distant island, and found by a kind man who sheltered and cared for them for many years. Remember, this is in Greece, where there's lots and lots and lots of islands. The magic sandals. The cruel king of the island wanted to marry the beautiful Danae, and when she refused, he plotted to send Perseus away in revenge. He challenged Perseus to bring him the head of Medusa. She was one of 3 monster sisters, with the bodies and faces of women, but the golden wings and terrible brass claws and snakes for hair. Now that's funny, because that picture kind of gives her a snake's body, but it specifically says with the body and face of women. So it should be an ordinary body and face, and just brass claws and wings, which this picture doesn't look as if she's got any wings, and snakes for hair. The most important thing actually is the snakes for hair. Anyone who looked at their faces was instantly turned to stone. Without any weapons or any idea where to find Medusa, Perseus went to the shore to plan his quest. Two mysterious people told him where to set off on his journey, and that he must get directions from the Grey Sisters and collect 3 things from the maidens of the West before challenging Medusa. He realized the people were the gods Athena and Hermes, although he didn't understand why they were helping him. Now, Hermes is also a name that you might have heard, because it is the name given to a delivery company. And they chose that name because Hermes was a messenger. And actually, the picture that you saw of the sandals were probably his sandals. Here's the Grey Sisters. They look nice, don't they? Mercury's winged sandals, they're Mercury's sandals, they don't belong to Hermes at all. Mercury's winged sandals flew Perseus to the sisters. These 3 creatures were so old that they had forgotten their own age, and nobody could count the years that they had lived. The long hair which covered their heads had been grey since they were born, and they had between them only a single eye and a single tooth, which they passed back and forth from one another. Well, that's nice, isn't it? That sounds lovely. What a great family to be in. Perseus heard them mumbling and crooning in their dreary home, and he stood very still and listened. Crooning, is singing. A crooner is a singer. Tricking them, Perseus made the old women tell him where to travel to find the Western maidens. You can see him there with the fancy winged sandals. Let's find out now about the Western maidens. Once more, Perseus put on his winged slippers and set off. When he arrived in the Western land, he saw the 3 maidens of the West guarding a tree which was full of golden apples and singing as they danced. The tree belonged to Hera, the Queen of the Queen of the Earth and Sky, and it had been given to her as a wedding gift, and it was the duty of the maidens to care for it and see that no one touched the golden apples. Perseus went forward and spoke to the maidens. Once they heard his plight, they willingly agreed to help him, but they offered not 3 but 4 things to help him kill Medusa: a sword, a shield, and a magic pouch, and a magic cap of invisibility. Plight just means trouble. Once more, he put on the magic slippers and flew off to find Medusa and her Gorgon sisters. The dreadful Gorgons. With the sharp sword at his side and the bright shield upon his arm, Perseus flew bravely onward in search of the dreadful Gorgons. But he had the cap of visibility upon his head, making him invisible as the wind. Luckily, we can see him in the picture. Cleverly using the shiny shield as a mirror, Perseus saw the reflection of the hideous snake-haired monsters while they slept. Very stealthily, he went nearer and nearer, always with his back towards the monsters, and always looking into his bright shield to see where to go. He drew his sharp sword and, dashing quickly, struck a blow so sure, so swift, that the head of Medusa was cut from her shoulders, and the black blood gushed like a river from her neck. Stealthily means carefully, quietly, the way you might break into a house. Quick as a thought, he thrust the terrible head into his magic pouch and leaped again into the air and flew away with the speed of a lightning flash. Escaping under his invisibility cap and with the help of the magic slippers, Perseus left the anguished screams of Medusa's sister behind him as he made his way to safety. Anguished means upset, very sad. The great beast. As Perseus made his way home over the vast oceans, he came across a strange sight. He saw a beautiful girl chained to a rock by the seashore, and far away a huge beast swimming towards her to devour her. Quick as a blink, he flew down and spoke to her, but as she could not see him for the cap of invisibility which he wore, his voice only frightened her. Devour means eat. "Oh, save me! Save me!" she cried as she reached out her arms towards him. Perseus could see the sea monster coming closer, so he took the Gorgon's head out of his magic pouch and held it up high, and the inevitable happened. So if something's inevitable, it means it can't be stopped. It's definitely going to happen. No, for example, when it's inevitable that the days are getting longer. Nobody can do anything about the days getting longer. It's inevitable that they'll continue to get longer until the end of June, when they'll start getting shorter again. That's inevitable. Then Perseus slipped the Gorgon's head back into the pouch and hastened to speak to the young girl whom he had saved. She told him that her name was Andromeda, and that she was the daughter of the king and queen of that land. Andromeda told Perseus that she was being sacrificed to the sea monster as a punishment for her mother's vanity. So vanity means that the thing that you're most interested in is how beautiful you look. As the pair talked, the king and queen and many of the people of the land came to see what was happening. As a reward for saving his daughter, the king agreed to let his daughter marry Perseus. Forgetting his quest, Perseus stayed happily with Andromeda and her family for many months. Quest means mission or the job that he had to do. The timely rescue. Now this is a picture. I don't know what is highlighted. I think the story will tell us in a minute. But the bottom left is Africa. The top left is Europe. And everything else there is Asia. And the bit at the bottom middle, that is the Arabian Peninsula, where Saudi Arabia is, and places like the United Arab Emirates, which is where Dubai is. They're on that piece of land. Greece is at the top left, but it's where it's coloured in, and if you look, it's all kind of jagged, sort of like yeah, that's where Greece is and where all the islands are around that area. But Perseus had not forgotten his mother. So one fine summer day, he and Andromeda sailed in a beautiful ship to his own home, for the winged slippers could not carry both him and his bride through the air. The ship came to land at the very spot where the wooden chest had been cast so many years before. Perseus and his bride walked through the fields towards the town. Now the wicked king of that land had never ceased trying to persuade Danae to become his wife, but she would not listen to him, and the more he pleaded and threatened, the more she disliked him. At last, when he found that she could not be made to marry him, he declared that he would kill her. And on this very morning he had started out, sword in hand, to take her life. Ceased means stopped. The king had never stopped trying to persuade her, and declared means just to say out loud. He said loudly that he would kill her. So, as Perseus and Andromeda came into the town, they were greeted with the scene of his mother fleeing to the safety of the altar of Zeus, and the king following after her, intent on killing her. When Perseus saw the king running like a madman after his mother, he again took the head of Medusa from his magic pouch. So intent means completely focused. He was completely focused on killing her. I promised to bring you a present, and here it is, he cried. The king saw it and was turned into stone as he stood with his sword uplifted, and a terrible look of anger and passion in his face. His mother safe, Perseus decided that they should all return home to Argos, so the three of them set sail the following day. The deadly quoit. Quoit is one of those rings there, and actually we've got them for gym quoits. You've probably seen them. They're rubber and they're different colours. When Danae's old father, the king of Argos, heard that a strange ship was coming over the sea with his daughter and her son on board, he was in great distress. He remembered what the Pythia had foretold about his death. So he left without waiting to see the vessel. He left his palace in great haste and fled. My daughter's son cannot kill me if I keep out of his way, he said. So foretold means to tell in advance, and vessel is another word for a ship. Perseus had no wish to harm him and was distraught when he heard that what the old man had done. With his grandfather gone, the people of the kingdom wanted Perseus to rule over them, which he did willingly, in memory of the man he had never known. A while later, Perseus was taking part in challenges and games with neighbouring kingdoms. He threw a heavy quoit a great deal further than any had been thrown before. It landed in the crowd of spectators and struck a stranger who was standing there. As Perseus ran to help him, he saw that he was dead. The man was none other than Danae's father, the old king of Argos. He had fled from his kingdom to save his life, and in doing so had only met his death. Perseus was so overcome with grief and had no wish to continue as the ruler of the kingdom, so he and Andromeda left the country and lived happily in the neighbouring kingdom of Mycenae for many years. And here's the glossary. I'll not read it through because I've mostly told you what the words mean, but you can have a look for yourself. So that's a Greek story. The truth is that the whole story is much more in depth than that, and that's just a kind of very quick overview. And we'll look at some more as we go on.